Hello and welcome to My Legend podcast, Peter.
Today's guest is a Melbourne-based company director who, while in his 30s, was intrigued to discover that he had Indian heritage. His late grandfather, Himanshu Rai, was the co-founder of the pioneering Bombay Talkies film studio. Himanshu had spent much of his youth, which was in the 1920s, in England and Germany, where he met his first wife, the dancer and actress Mary Enlin. Their daughter, Nilima, grew up in Germany and migrated to Australia as a young woman in the early 50s. One of her sons, who joins us as a guest on this episode, was unearthing his past and work into his grandfather's life, which led him on a fascinating journey of discovery from Melbourne to India to London to Munich to Berlin and New York, where he actually discovered fascinating and rare archive of scripts, photos, letters and business documents that once belonged to his grandfather Himanshu Rai. So let's welcome Peter Dietze. Peter and his brothers have formed the Dietze Family Trust, which is also spearheading another project called the Bombay Talkies Project. Let us hear from Peter in his own words, his fascinating journey, his plans for the Bombay Talkies Project, and what it has achieved so far.
So thank you so much for joining me on this today. Many thanks to you, Peter. Welcome.
My pleasure, Shantiri. Nice to see you. And I'm thinking of all your friends in India at the moment in relation to the COVID and hoping they're all safe and well.
Yes, thank you for your good wishes. So we are very much on wait and watch mode right now. But we prefer to stay optimistic about whatever's going to happen. So Peter, I'll jump right into my first question. I've always been fan, a cinema trivia fan, and been a great fan of the Bombay Talkies, which is the pioneering studio in India. A lot of Indian cinema kind of owes its glory to Bombay Talkies. Can you explain to us what you have been doing, who you are, and your amazing connection with the Bombay Talkies?
Well, I think it's it is a unique connection. That's number one. The fact that it's an Australian-Indian connection is kind of strange in itself. I really had no idea of my Indian background until I was in my mid-30s. I was brought up in Melbourne, in Victoria, in the mid-60s, and we sort of I grew up as an Australian of German extraction. Mum and Dad, they tried to teach me German as much as they could. They immigrated after the war, and when they came to Melbourne after a short period in Palm Beach in New South Wales, they raised us, me and my two brothers, as Australians of German extraction. And it was, like I said, it was only later in life that I discovered that I had any Indian heritage. And once I found out that I had Indian heritage, I would search for the name of Himanshu Rai, my grandfather, because I found a photo in my mother's attic, and that had, I said, that looks like me. And she said, that's your grandfather. I said, but he's Indian. And so that was opening Pandora's box. I mean, it's really an unusual thing. And once I knew that, it explained a lot about my personality, how I go about the way I behave. And I really, I was at an age where, when I was a youngster, I sort of didn't fit in. And having found this out, it sort of made me very centered, and I felt very strong about my Indian heritage. And ever since then, I've been on a mission to find out as much as I possibly can about my grandparents, because I didn't have them growing up. When I was in Melbourne, my friends who used to say we're going around to Nanas and Poppers on the weekend, and I never had that, and I thought it was a bit strange, and I just never got that connection. And now the funny thing is that I'm a grandparent myself, and the connection is unbelievable. And I mean, I'm still very strong, very passionate about my grandfather and the work that he did. And I've been working ever since on promoting his work, and as much as I can in exhibition form, possibly in a film. It'll all happen over a period of time, and we're making inroads with all of that at the moment.
Peter, that brings me to the moot question. We know the glory of Bombay Talkies and how Himanshu Rai, the iconic figure, made history. You know, he kind of changed the game for pioneering cinema in India. So why is this connection now so important to you? And what is the glory of Bombay Talkies as you see it back in Australia?
Well, I think it's important to every Indian and the Indian diaspora as such, because he was the pioneer, one of the pioneers of a great film industry that you have in and it's still going. It's succumbing to a lot of pressure at the moment, but when things change, you know, it will rise again. And probably, I think India is one of the largest movie filmmaking countries in the world, and to be the pioneer of that, I don't think it's been recognised enough in India. There's been a lot of actors that have done very well out of the Bombay Talkies. Just the word Bombay Talkies is still very relevant today. Everybody uses it. Everybody wants to know about it. What is Bombay Talkies? You know, it was a fabulous film company back in the day, and one of the largest and one of the most technically advanced. So it really was something special. And so I'm very, very proud of what he accomplished. And I was lucky enough to go to Malad. I met with a lovely man by the name of Amrit Ganga. He walked me through where my grandfather worked every day, and that was astonishing, and I don't think the Malad studios are particularly cared for in a historical sense. There's other pressures on India that probably keep this from happening, but, if I can keep my focus on promoting Himanshu's legacy and reminding people of the value of the Bombay Talkies, well, that's the reason that I'm here, I guess, and the reason I'm talking to you.
So can you walk us through the efforts that you have made since the time you've unearthed your Indian legacy? What is it that you have consistently been doing? I mean, you've kind of raised a project called the Bombay Talkies Project. So what have been those efforts can you trace the timelines of the mission that you are on, Peter?
It's really all about the preservation of Indian cinema to the world. We have the largest collection of I won't say memorabilia. It's an archive of the Bombay Talkies. It's actually the notes and letters of Devika Rani and all the people involved in the Bombay Talkies, because it was the way that they looked after or documented their history. We have it, and that's what's so important for people going forward, to understand how they did things back in the 30s, and all the work that took place to actually create the studio, the movies that they did. They did a lot of work in making sure that young actors were brought through, they were looked after, they were cared for. They really did have a very good, responsible career, even though it was quite risque at the time. Back in the 1930s, even Devika Rani, as a young woman, wouldn't have, she would have had a lot of difficulties in getting through to the general public, her opinions, as you can, that are expressed in some great films of that period, films like Ashut Kanya, where, you're dealing with caste problems that still exist in India today. All of these things are very relevant today and going forward, if that we can understand what happened back then, how it may progress in the future with a better caring attitude. I don't know, but there's a lot of work to be done. And, I think there should be a lot of people out there that would love to learn about the Bombay Talkies and just be a part of a growing Indian cinema.
So, what is the kind of excitement, or what was the reaction to the BT project back in Melbourne among the Indian diaspora and others as well? Did you get like a real excited response and reception to this?
I was overwhelmed. I really I found it incredible, and it's growing all the time. I believe that we should have an exhibition every 2 years in Melbourne to recognise the efforts of the Bombay Talkies just themselves. But we put on 75 pieces on display from the archive, and of those, there's over 3,000 piece collection. So this collection is very important to people. Lots of researchers have delved into it. Students have done theses on it. A book has been written by an author, Debrashee Mukherjee, who I find, she really is a modern writer that's actually done credit to that period or the history of Indian cinema. And the Bombay Talkies is a major part of that. The exhibition itself was it was nothing short of a success, and it was an eye opener to a lot of people who didn't understand how could the Bombay Talkies have anything to do with Melbourne. Yet there is a very strong connection here, and the Indian diaspora is growing exponentially, and it's a beautiful time here.
Wonderful. So you also went to the US and to the UK, in the process of taking
Yes.
the BT project story forward. So can you kind of recount your experiences there? How were you received there?
I think the most important thing is the contribution of the BFI in all of this. They worked tirelessly to restore and remaster one of Himanshu's early films called Throw of Dice. This was then that they organised a beautiful musical score was composed by Nitin Sawhney, and that has. I was lucky to see that in. I've seen it in New Zealand live with the New Zealand Philharmonic. I was lucky enough to go to London because I'll go wherever the film goes, obviously, if I can. And I went to see the premiere at Trafalgar Square with 4,000 of my closest Indian friends, I guess is the way to say that. But they enjoyed seeing Himanshu on the big screen next to Nelson's column with the London Symphony Orchestra. It was extravagant. It was beautiful. And the music was unbelievable. The conductor, Stephen Hussey, we've stayed in contact, and he did a beautiful job there. And we have since the next stage to this was the second one of his other early silent films, which was called Shiraz, made in 1928. That was also premiered in London. I was lucky to meet Anushka Shankar and to listen to her beautiful score. And both of them make old silent films new again for a whole new generation of people to watch. That's the most important thing, that younger people are getting involved in what is this black and white, grainy old thing. They're not interested. But when you see it presented in a new way, you can see the value, and it's historical, and it's sometimes hysterical.
Oh,
It's
yes.
so much fun. So,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely. Oh my God. A throw of dice. I mean, thank you so much for telling me about the redone version. You know, the background score is masterly. I think Nitin Soni has completely outdone himself. It was a pleasurable experience watching a throw of dice. I think the background score was overwhelmingly powerful. I couldn't have imagined a greater tribute to, the masterly classics of the late 20s. I think it was splendid. It was splendid. I had a very good watch of the thing. I looked it up on YouTube as soon as you told me, and I'm thankful for that.
Yeah, I'm glad.
Yes,
I'm
thankful
glad,
for that.
you know.
Absolutely.
And every time, I mean, we have, we do have Indian movie nights when we've got a chance and try and show things to people that they just simply can't believe that this was done in 1920s with, you know, uh, I think the words we use are on the smell of an oily rag. You know, there's a lot of, hard grinding work to get a film made back in that period. I mean, you're using German technicians coming out from Germany, so it's a collaborative effort. You've got Maharanas who are offering their palaces for the sets and locations. You know, lots of wonderful things came together to make it happen. And it wasn't about money. It was about making a film. And that's what, that was the culmination of his work. You know, I mean, he started off in London in the 20s. So it was a long journey. And I think it exhausted him in the end. I mean, I think he just once he got the Bombay Talkies up and running, and, you know, it wasn't long after that Himanshu passed away, you know, so.
Absolutely. So, what are your future plans for this ambitious project? You have many things up your sleeve. You're thinking about a lot of things, and I think COVID perhaps has just put a small stop to it. But could you just walk us through some of your future plans?
We'd be very grateful for people to support what we're about, which is sharing the collection of material that we have to as many people as possible. So you can understand that having the exhibition in Melbourne in the first instance was unique because of our Australian connection. But we also have a strong connection in London because that's where Himanshu really started his career. And we also have a strong German connection. Therefore, we would like to see us do exhibitions in both. So, you know, when we look to the exhibitions, I really would like to see us do another exhibition in Melbourne. I'd like to see that grow, possibly an exhibition in London, one in Germany, then one in New York. And then our last visit, I hope, would be in India, where we would love to have the collection on display in the right way to the right people.
Like, more power to your mission. I mean, I'm completely impressed by the fact that you've taken this upon yourselves. And I really, we'd be really happy to see this happen in India. I think every Indian deserves to see this rich part of our legacy, our cinematic legacy, because we are a very
Absolutely.
popular, culture-driven society, country, demography, and I think we really deserve to see this. You have a very personal connect. The late Himanshu Rai was your grandfather. So what are your thoughts about his life and his work and the kind of efforts he put in to get the best technicians from across the world, especially from Germany, and his relationship with your family and Devika Rani? What are your thoughts? What have you personally thought about it over the years since the time you have discovered?
I think, you have to understand that the archive itself holds the key to a lot of the things that happened to Himanshu during his period. You know, it goes back into the period of the Indian players back in the 1920s, which that fascinates me because he was coming out of Shanateken as a student with a lot of other. Well, he was a Bengali back, and he was also he was chosen to study law by his parents, and they shipped him off to London. I mean, it's a big thing, and I think that in one way, I believe that it could have been that they were trying to get back at the British in a way by not just being freedom fighters, but maybe studying law and then coming back to India to solve other issues. That was probably the desire. And then, I mean, he fell in love with the theatre back in London and left the law, simple as that. And meeting Mary was doing a lot of work, and we have historical accounts of exactly what she was up to and what plays and films she was involved in back in the day. They really did do a lot of work together, and she was the one who introduced him to, you know, the German directors and filmmakers of Amelka and Ufa, etc., etc. They were the ones that then helped him get into filmmaking. He was really he was in a play called Chu Chin Chow originally as a young man. That was his first breakthrough thing, I think. And, you know, to make a film, his first film, The Light of Asia, with and have that presented to King George V and Queen Mary, you know, that was really quite incredible. So, you know, when you start me off on Himanshu Rai and how much I think about him a lot, because those early days really do fascinate me because of he was a young man. The film was only 20 years invented prior to that period. So this was really groundbreaking stuff. So he had to do a lot of work to get people to listen to his stories. And the stories he was telling were the first film, the story of Buddha, The Light of Asia. I mean, this is culturally significant. You know, it's something that should be, you know, carried on and further investigated. So when you look at the archive that we have available, that gives you an insight into the type of person he was. And, you know, we sort of know where he had a cup of coffee, how much he paid for the coffee, where he was living at the time, what the receipts were, what medicines he took, every single little thing. But to actually go through that archive, you need a stadium the size of a football field and a team of 20 or 30 people. I'm just one person with my brothers, and it's very rare that we've even had the archive opened for ourselves. We've only had it open for a couple of people to do their research on, and that's about it. So hopefully in the future we'll be able to understand a little bit more about Himanshu and what was going on. You know, Devika Rani was friends with my grandmother as well. You know, she was, and the two of them, those two women, you know, I've got a picture of them with my mother, and you know, they were in the roaring 20s. It was a strange time. You know, you've got you're talking about pre-war, even to have these Indians in London in Western clothes was outrageous at the time. They were trendsetters. There's no doubt about that. And, you know, they became the golden, him and Devika later on became a golden couple, as that's what you would say. You know, they were the Brad and Angelina type. You know, the Malad Studios, even the way they looked, the design of it, you know, and having walked through it, you know, obviously there's things that we need to address, how to preserve that legacy.
I would definitely call, Himanshu Rai and, and his entire set of people the most avant-garde and the most bohemian trendsetters of their time. I think you were very right when you spoke about Brad and Angelina. Great comparison. So, wonderful talking to you, Peter. Thank you so much for sharing these insights. And I will stay in touch. And of course, this story is going to come out on My Legend podcast. And we hope to have a lot of people talking about this as well. And yes, I'm very excited about the BT project coming over to India sometime. I think every Indian, as I said earlier, deserves to know this story. This is as important as any other story of history that we have. So thank you so much once again. And I look forward to talking to you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All the best. And I really do wish you well. Okay, bye for now.
Bye and a namaste to you.
Namaste.